The 2025 Elite 11 finals have kicked off here on June 17th, and Austin and myself are going to preview our thoughts on all the quarterbacks in there right after the stinger. If you are not subscribed to Campus to Canton, hit that like and subscribe button first if you're watching this on YouTube, and then go check out the website. We'll be discussing all of the quarterbacks again in the Elite 11 finals, and a lot of the statistics and things you will see on here. For instance, the star score, velo that you will see on these graphics as we talk about these quarterbacks can all be found. Well, yes, they all can be found actually now at Campus to Canton. I forgot we have the velo on the player profiles now. So
we do.
New thing this year that I'm excited about. So, Austin, Elite 11 finals. It does kick off tonight, the night we are recording it. I don't believe they actually do any drills. I know I saw them doing a bunch of interviews and other stuff. Obviously, they usually put all that stuff live on like Instagram, Twitter. I want to say something else, right, or X, whatever. So you can watch them actually doing the throwing drills and everything, which I believe start tomorrow and Thursday. It's a very interesting group. I think when I wrote the article on this, going back and looking, I've only written the article for the Elite 11 final previews, I think twice before this. Both the two before that, there was a lot more like top 10 ranked quarterbacks at the Elite 11 finals than compared to this year. This year we have a pretty wide stretch of players, including one all the way down is when I wrote the article, Bryson Beaver, who I believe was ranked in the 70s at the time. Now I believe he's up in the 50s, if I'm remembering correctly, but still fairly far down the list. Just kind of what are your overall thoughts on these quarterbacks before we jump in and start talking about all the players who made it?
Yeah, I think we might have mentioned this on a show recently when we do the official here. I think I have 12 of these players currently as draftable and C2C startups / supplemental drafts next year. Obviously, that's subject to change, but I do think other than Jared Curtis, who didn't participate, I think generally it is kind of, for us, pretty much all of our top guys are there, more or less. So I think that like him and Ryder Lyons are like the only two that like we're kind of top-ish guys that like, and we don't even really like Ryder Lyons that much. But I mean, so I think it's a lot of guys that we're interested in. I think there's a pretty broad spectrum of archetype of player this year. And I think there's a very clear like top group. And then I think the rest of it's probably going to be up for grabs, which I think is going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that Jared Curtis is not here. I didn't hear any reasoning on why. I believe he didn't even go to any of the regionals. So I don't know if it's
he didn't participate.
So which is kind of a trend over the past couple years. I mean, Bryce Underwood did not go last year, and Arch Manning did not go the year before that. So we've kind of seen there's someone else. Did Dylan Raiola win? Didn't he? Who's the other one I'm forgetting about? There was another top quarterback who hasn't gone recently as well. But we've kind of seemed to miss out on those top guys. But last year, I mean, Keelan Russell won it. And if I'm remembering correctly, Austin, like he was not committed to Alabama before he won that. That really kind of helped shoot him up recruiting boards and everything after the Elite 11 win last year.
He was still with SMU, going into it. So SMU's loss was Alabama's gain there, yeah.
I mean, I don't know that we can touch on it here. Alabama gained another quarterback that is at the Elite 11 finals this year. I don't know that was a great move on his part, but we can talk about that when we get to him. Austin, you ready? You ready to break these quarterbacks down?
Let's talk all about them and all right. And then talk about our favorites.
Yeah, so if you are watching this live, we are going to go down these in alphabetical order. So this is not like I'm going to give you the first player we're going to talk about is Bryson Beaver. We're not saying he has the best chance to win the Elite 11, but he may have made somebody's top 12. But Bryson Beaver, so we have him at 6'3", 195 pounds, a 54 ball velo. We have him 45 spots higher than the consensus rankings. That might be due to one specific ranker where we have him at QB 26 overall. Star score, though, again, not great. Austin, I don't know if you can give a better breakdown than Matt did of it. And I wish I could remember what episode that was of the official, but go check out the official where Matt joined Austin. He gave a great breakdown of the star score, but can you give us like a quick breakdown of what the star score means?
Yeah, especially for quarterbacks, it takes into account not only a kind of individual athletic attributes, which are kind of scored on a percentile basis. So we break it out for all positions. They have a speed score, acceleration, burst, agility, and power. And then for quarterbacks, you also get mixed in their throw velocity. We also measure how many sports they played in high school, because we have found that really does matter in terms of, kind of functional athleticism, and in size as well. We take all that into account, kind of mix it all together, and it spits out a star score. And for pretty much every position, but especially the quarterbacks, we really are looking for at least a 70th percentile athlete once you combine all those factors in. So certainly not necessarily a perfect metric.
Yeah.
Definitely, as we get more data, the more data we have on a player, the better it is for them. But I think we've found that I think of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL, Andrew Woodruff just did a really nice article for us. I think there's two that weren't at least 70th percentile athletes out of college. So, I mean, it does really, really matter. Bryce Young was one of them. I forget who the other one was, but it really does matter in terms of projecting guys to the NFL functionally.
Yeah. And so I do want to also mention with that, I mean, we are constantly updating the different numbers and everything that we get in throughout different athletic testing, verified testing, and everything for these players. So these are subject to change throughout, the rest of their time in high school. Obviously, all of these players are going into their senior years of high school. So while you may not see I'll just use Bryson Beaver as an example here since he's on the screen. We may not see as he's listed right now, 0.03 or 0.319. He may not jump up to that over 70 mark that we want to see, but there will be a couple players on here you'll see that are just below that line that maybe with a couple adjusted scores here and there from verified testing will jump that. But we do see the scores change every once in a while. But Bryson Beaver, Austin, I'll let you go first. I know you're not quite as big a fan of him as I am. Just recently decommitted from Boise State, has lined up multiple visits with a bunch of top schools. He seems to be kind of moving up the recruiting charts. I think a good showing here at the Elite 11 finals could help him out.
Yeah, I think we're trying to do kind of the Spark Notes breakdowns of some of these guys. So just solid size. He's an okay scrambler, probably a 300-ish yard rusher in college, with the sack yardage mixed in there. Decent throwing on the run. He's pretty solid mechanically. I think there is actually some additional velocity that he could potentially unlock. I think mechanically he's a little off at times. So, I mean, I think when I watched him, I thought the accuracy was fine. It was just a lot of yeah, that's fine as I watched him. I don't think he really personally to me has a super standout trait. He does play a pretty difficult schedule, 36 strength of schedule last year. 15 is kind of the minimum average that we're looking for there. And he has decent size with some frame to grow, even though he is a little skinny right now. So, I think he's got some of those kind of maybe possibly projectable traits, but I just don't see a high-end guy when I've watched him, but a guy that could potentially do well in these settings because of just kind of how even keel he is as a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to mention. I think for me, the thing I really loved about watching him was I thought he had a very quick release, and I thought his ball accuracy and placement was really good. It's some of the best that I've watched in this class, and I think in certain drills in this competition, that could really help him. So, that could really kind of give him a leg up on some of the other players who, again, maybe have better arm strength or better just some all-around tools. But in these settings, he could do a really good job. I think it has a really good shot to be a very good college player. Again, we'll see what happens with him as he did just decommit from Boise State. Arguably one of the favorites in this competition, Diabell, one of the top-ranked quarterbacks in the class, currently committed to Texas. We have him as our QB3, which is right on par with the consensus, right on that line that we'd like to see of ball velo at 53, Austin. But obviously, very good star score, as you can see from the graphic.
Yeah, son of Raja Bell, the former NBA, two guard with the Suns for those years when they were really fun. And I think he played on the Spurs a little bit as well, and maybe some other places. But yeah, I mean, really good athleticism scores across the board. 87th percentile speed, 83rd percentile acceleration, 58th percentile burst. We got the ball velocity. It's at least 52 miles per hour, which we're kind of looking for. Good size, kind of start checking all the boxes. Some of the similar athletic profiles that pop up in our database, guys like Jalen Hurts, Geno Smith, Jake Locker, who was a high draft pick, didn't work out, but there's some good NFL draft prospects on that listing. Plays against good competition at a good high school, going into probably a pretty good situation at Texas there. So all in all, I think that I picked him, spoilers, to potentially win the whole thing. I think he was kind of the guy that I lean toward. And I think that he is, rightfully, a very highly ranked guy for us and the services.
Yeah, he was in the article that I did. He was my top player to win the competition. Pretty much my top contender. I agree with you. I think the one thing I love the most about him, really impressive mechanics, consistent throwing motion. Again, just to point this out, I wrote that article probably a month and a half ago when all the names were announced. He was a 0.90 in the star score. So again, even a little bit of updating throughout different verified numbers, we've seen his star score adjust just a little bit. Deshaun Watson was actually also in those, which was kind of a standout one for me, obviously, with how good he was at Clemson going into the NFL. Austin, another one of your favorite players in this class, Bowe Bentley, who is currently uncommitted, but I would think, I believe LSU is still pretty high up on going after him. We have him at QB7, that is +3 in the consensus, so the consensus rankings have him at about QB10. Again, ball velo right there at that 53 line mark. But again, a good showing here. Could possibly see that recruitment change a little bit after this weekend.
Yeah. A lot of the really good star rating stuff on him. He kind of checks a lot of the boxes. He's real close on the star rating. So we'll see if he ends up getting there, right around a 0.6. And he checks the box on ball velocity, good strength of schedule down there in Texas. And, we don't have our production scores yet, but I am substituting in just for now, Mr. Andrew Woodruff's production scores, because he's talked about them recently. And without giving away the score, Bentley does have a good one. Like, it would check the box for us there as well. So all the data says he's a good player. He's very inexperienced. So I think, him getting a second year starting here in high school and then maybe sitting a year, whether it's LSU or Oklahoma, is going to be good for him. But I know another guy that he's kind of like Tony Romo-ish, loves playing off platform, loves kind of throwing from these different arm slots. He's one of the few guys in this class that I think does a really good job with all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I know another guy that I think could be really interesting. I think everyone, if you remember last year, was going crazy over Julian Sayin doing that jump 360 pass or whatever. I could see Bentley kind of doing some fun stuff like that over the course of the week and people kind of falling in love with him.
Yeah, he's a player that I think really could rise. I believe I put him in my second tier of contenders for this competition, because I really loved his accuracy all over the field. Has some really good placement throws right over the middle of the field as well, kind of layering it right over that defense. Fairly impressive deep throws as well. So could be a guy who really stands out here. I love some of the athletic profiles as well. I believe it was Drew Brees and Kurt Warner were right up there with his. So some players, again, who are really interesting. Could be a
Rex Grossman.
Sexy Rexy, baby.
That's Super Bowl starting quarterback Rex Grossman to you, sir.
Yes. That is. Well, I mean, Drew Brees and Kurt Warner both won one, but Sexy Rexy does deserve to be in that conversation a little bit. But yeah, I mean, he's a very exciting player. Again, I know he's a guy you've been high on. Would be fun to see him do just really well in this competition. Again, see what maybe happens. Well, whether it's LSU or Oklahoma, he ends up going to. Hopefully, we'll find out soon. Faizon Brandon. So here's one of the guys that, Bryson Beaver, we're very different on in the services in a positive direction, and we have him much higher. Faizon Brandon, we're a little bit lower than him, than the recruiting services. As you can see, we have him at QB9. He is QB2 in the composite ranking, so we're about -7 on the comparison difference there. Star rating of a 0.484. Fairly decent ball velocity, again, right above that average line mark. Going to Tennessee, Austin, I know he's a guy that we've kind of talked about, could surprise. Maybe it's something the services have gotten an opportunity to see that we haven't, but kind of your overall thoughts on Brandon in this competition.
Yeah, again, just strictly talking about the data, probably is going to fall a little short as of what we've seen so far in production score. The star rating, again, like you just said, below a 50th percentile, so not where we want that to be. The ball velo, pretty good though. And the strength of schedule, 28.3. So over, kind of checking all those boxes. But yeah, I mean, I think we're not terribly impressed with him. And the big thing that stood out for me when I watched him, without getting into all the other stuff, is he's a big time drifter in the pocket. Real bad. Those guys, that's just a habit that seems to be really hard to break. And so I'm, again, going to Tennessee, if he's the starter there, I think pretty much anybody can run this offense. I think, as I said on Campus Life this week, I think Donkey could run that offense. But I don't think he as a player is particularly great.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does in the Elite 11 finals because, again, he's QB2 in the consensus behind Jared Curtis. I believe at one point in time they were battling it out for one. It seems like, at least for now, Curtis is there. I mean, the one thing I will say is I do think at times he's able to move around well in the pocket, but his ball placement and deep balls, I think, kind of struggle at times. So, like, that's going to be a big part of this competition. Now, they have added in like new drills and everything, including like some pocket presence stuff. So I'll be very curious to see how he does that. I really, like I said, hopefully these are live like they have been the past couple of years. I would love to just sit and watch them and kind of see how some of these guys do. But again, highly ranked guy. It'll be interesting to see if he kind of lives up to that reputation coming into the camp. Another player that we are higher on than the services and fairly good star rating, Travis Burress. We have him at QB 11. That is plus 19 against the composite. Star rating of 0.783. Ball velo at 53. So one thing I will say too, I should have mentioned at the time, a lot of these quarterbacks in this class a little bit different than last year's class. Last year, we had a lot of guys in like that 56 to 59 range of ball velo. This year, I feel like a lot of those guys are kind of more in that middle range of the 53 to 55. But Travis Burgess, very interesting athlete, very good rusher, not currently committed anywhere. Your thoughts, Austin?
We like him. I think you kind of were talking about it there. Like all the athleticism stuff is really good. The ball velo is good enough. Plays pretty strong strength of schedule down there in Georgia. We like the landing spot's going to be interesting because I think we also really like Bryce Baker, and so that what does that look like when we kind of get to our final evals? It doesn't impact this weekend, but our final opinion of him it will be important. But good runner. I think that's kind of where you start off with him. Needs to work a lot on kind of the accuracy and his footwork. I think the accuracy is fixable once he cleans some of that stuff up. But yeah, I think he's raw, but I think raw in a good way. Like there's still a lot of potential here for him. And so I think he'll do better than people suspect he will this weekend. And I do wish I just selfishly hope he flips from North Carolina and goes somewhere else that is less of a immediate starter right in front of him, because I think he's a good player.
Yeah, I completely forgot that he went to North Carolina. That is on me. But yeah, had a fairly good year in Georgia this year, as you mentioned. Played some very good competition again. I kind of just want to echo what you said. Really, it's the mechanics, and I think if he improved there, the velocity could improve, but the tools are there. So like it's gonna be really interesting. Again, they do a lot of these kind of like off-platform drills and everything that allow these guys to kind of roll out and fire the ball. I'll be very curious to see if he thrives a little bit in there. They do add some rushing stuff now in the Elite 11 competition. So again, that's stuff where he could thrive. So it'll be fun to see how he does in this competition. Next up is Helaman Casuga going to Texas A&M. We have him at QB 28. That's 11 spots lower than the consensus. 52 ball velo, 0.248 star score rating, but he is coming from, I think at this point we can say, kind of like a legacy high school when it comes to putting at least quarterbacks into college football and them succeeding, and that is Corner Canyon, Jackson Dart, Zach Wilson, Isaac Wilson, now Helaman Casuga.
Yeah, I mean, he unfortunately for us just falls real short on the athleticism stuff. I don't think it's going to be salvageable to get him anywhere close to the star rating. So he's probably off of my draft list. But I do think as a college quarterback, he can be pretty interesting. Comps in our database. John Reese Plumlee is in there. Dennis Dixon's in there. So there are some, kind of intriguing players, but the arm velo is going to end up being, potentially, and the athleticism is going to be potentially limiting for him. And actually 52 surprises me because I have one of the notes, like visually, I think his arm is noticeably poor. Like it is a note that I actually wrote down. So, but I think, coming from this high school, he is what you expect. The footwork is there, which is what makes there's no extra velo here. Like there's not much more to unlock. It's just, it kind of is what it is. So, I think he's a guy that's like real mechanical. Again, another guy that maybe does well in this kind of setting, but I don't have a ton of super high hopes for him in college moving forward. And he's also apparently might be flipping from A&M. So that'll be something to watch over the next couple of weeks too.
Yeah, I put on here that he could be a potential riser in this competition because of that. Like I really like his mechanics, very consistent. I thought he had a very good release, seemed to be very repeatable and consistent with that as well. And I thought he had really good pocket manipulation. So could be a player that really thrives in this scenario. And I do think puts I don't know how to, because I don't think he's got the arm strength to really fire it in deep, but like he does seem to like lay it out there well enough for his wide receivers, which I think in this competition will make him look good because he doesn't have to make that perfect throw at times, especially when there's no defenders on the wide receivers. So if he just leads those wide receivers perfectly down the field, it might look really good and pretty, but I don't know that he's got the arm strength to really drive that ball in deep like you want. I think Felix would always talk about like that frozen rope, like that barely gets like whatever it is, 10 yards off the ground that you fire 20, 30 yards down the field. He just doesn't have that in his game.
Yeah.
One of the players we definitely disagree on, my boy Briggs Cherry. Briggs Cherry going to Louisville. That star rating. It's a little rough. We have him at QB 24. That's 2 spots higher than the consensus. 52 ball velo, but a star rating of 0.031. But hey, Jeff Brom just does the best, makes, what is it? I don't know. Mice meet on men. I forgot how that saying goes or whatever, but he does it with quarterbacks. What do you think Cherry can do in this competition?
If you multiply his star score by 10, you're not even halfway to the threshold that we want. Like, oh my gosh, I cannot remember a player over the past few cycles that has been in that category. The comps for us, John David Booty, David Fales, like these are guys, Graham Harrell is on there. These are guys, so if you get them in just like a perfect situation, maybe they can do something, but I have just like a sneaking suspicion that Louisville, I think, has shown that they're very willing to dip into the portal with Brom there, and I think that probably continues. I'm so far out on this kid from like a draftability perspective in C2C leagues next year.
Well, I'm not out on him yet. I do like the player. I think he's got really good. He's your prototype pocket passer. He is exactly that. You're getting absolutely no rushing from him whatsoever. As if Felix were here, he would call him cement shoes. Yeah, like my favorite. I forgot what his name is now at this point. But he was one of my high end QBs back in the day. Went to Washington, transferred down. I don't remember what his name is at the moment, but I do think he's got very good. Sam Heward. There we go. Yeah. Very good football IQ. Really does seem to be able to place the ball almost anywhere on the field. I do think he thrives specifically in the short intermediate parts of the field. Can challenge the ball deep, but again, it kind of loses some of that velo. But I do think could do very well in this competition. But I do think, again, athletically is a little, short, obviously, compared to some of the others in this class. That is not necessarily. Well, maybe this isn't a problem with the next player. I'm thinking of somebody else. Dereon Coleman, who's currently committed to Miami. We have him at QB 10. That is 3 spots higher than the consensus rankings. Again, though, another player not with a great star score, 0.171 ball velo of 55.
Yeah, I think this is a guy that if we get more data on him, will rise up a little bit. Because right now we don't have any like speed, acceleration, burst, agility, or power scores for him. We just have the ball velo, which is 55 miles per hour. And we'll have to dig in and see if we can find another sport in there somewhere. Because right now we've only got him at 1. But like if you like Demond Williams, you're gonna like this dude. I think they're very, very comparable. I think I do think that he can definitely play at Miami. I think he's gonna be an interesting contender here this week. Because I do think that he is a very good rusher. But I think that he should not be underestimated as a passer. And I think he can do a lot of the off-platform, different arm slots, all that kind of stuff. Good throwing on the run. And I think some of the stuff that he struggles with a little bit, like he's a big-time see-it-throw-it guy right now. I don't think that matters so much in a setting like this. So I think he's going to do fairly well.
Yeah, I do like his quick release. I do think he generates a fairly good amount of velocity. When I saw the 55, I was a little shocked. I thought it was a little bit better than that. I actually think he's really good in the deep ball. Some of the notes I have on him, I think he's one of my favorite players to watch throw the deep ball, actually. Like, I think he's just very good at layering it out there, very good at throwing those. Does struggle at times, though, in the short intermediate areas. I do think struggles at times, which might be that see it throw it part. Like, he doesn't really vary any throw speeds. Like, he fires it in there quite a lot. But as you just mentioned, in a competition like this, that's not really going to hurt him much. So a guy that could really shine here and, possibly be a starter for Miami here soon. I don't know that anybody really loves their current quarterback room. Landon Duckworth is up next. He just dropped down his final 2. For the life of me, I cannot remember who they
Auburn
are now.
and South Carolina.
I knew South Carolina was one, but Auburn the other one. So we have met QB6. That is right in line with the composite ranking. Star score of 0.4423. Ball velo of 51.
Yeah, the velo is concerning, and I think visually it does look like it. Doesn't play a great strength of schedule, and he's on a very good team. Like, he's surrounded by a lot of nice talent, which I think helps him a little bit as well. So, from like a overall his profile perspective, like, yeah, I think that does hurt him a little bit. Like, I just think we talked about this when we talked about him like in depth. He throws with touch like all the time, but I think it's partially because he doesn't have a fastball really in his back pocket to be able to whip out in game. So, but a guy that I think will do pretty well in this setting. And I see Martin says, where do you think Duckworth will end up? I don't know. Probably South Carolina, but I don't think it matters that much. We talked about this. I think Auburn's probably the better spot for him. But I think both could be interesting.
Yeah, I think we just talked about in the recent episode of the official, Martin. Yeah. So we went a little bit deeper into that conversation. But yeah, I think, I wouldn't mind South Carolina because I think there's obviously a shot that if, chances are Sellers is gone after this year. I don't know that Duckworth starts as a true freshman. But as you mentioned, they have a fairly good quarterback room there where Auburn, they'd have Deuce Knight, but there's a lot of things in the fire there with what possibly could happen with Hugh Freeze and everything. So either one, I think he would be fine. Yeah, I don't disagree that they could do really good in this competition. But I just kind of question some of his overall upside. Next up, one of my favorites, Jake Fette, going to Arizona State. We have him at QB5. That's +2 in the consensus, a little bit higher than them. Star rating of 0.450 with a ball velo of 53.
Yeah, it's a bummer because some of the recent tweaks and information we've had added actually dropped him a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that we talked about him. He's like a moxie kind of guy. He will fight for every yard. He will bounce off a bunch of defenders and kind of, keep his eyes downfield and try to make a play. He's one of those guys. Maybe he hangs on a little too long. I think his comparisons in our stuff is interesting. Like Trace McSorley and Brennan Armstrong are in there, and that does kind of feel right to me on a certain level, even though I think he may be a little more elevated version of those kind of guys. I think ASU, like, he is kind of Sam Leavitt light in that regard. So I think that ASU is going to be a really good spot for him. And another guy that I think probably will do pretty well in the competition this weekend. I think he will end up in the Elite 11 out of 20.
Yeah, I agree with you. I in my article, I had him as one of those top guys. Again, I think a lot of it just comes down to his accuracy, specifically in the short intermediate areas with the velocity. I think he's very accurate on deep throws as well. Impressive athlete. And as you mentioned, just dropped a little bit with the new numbers. I wrote this article. I just went to look at it on May 25th, and his star score index at that point was 0.75. So, again, because of the adjustments, we've seen it drop a little, but maybe could move back up again. We'll see those guys change throughout their time as we get more solidified numbers. Next up was an interesting guy. I know a guy that I think some of you guys like a little bit more than I do, and that's Florida's Will Griffin. We have him at QB 15, right in line with the composite ranking, star score 0.605 with a 54 ball velo.
Yeah, Griffin's definitely one of #my guys in this class, and I was really happy to see that he ended up getting the invite. Yeah, good size. Yeah, the star rating's close. Can we get it up a little closer to that 0.7? I think potentially we can. Strength of schedule was okay. It's over that 15 mark, 20.6. Really intense kind of guy. So I think like in this setting, like he's really going to be a competitive kind of, against his peers, wants to kind of show out guy. I think the arm is really live. I think that he throws a really nice deep ball, quick release, all those kinds of things. He runs with good physicality, but he's not an amazing rusher. Again, not that matters this weekend, but just kind of the player that he is. Like, he's more of a physical style runner than elusive or anything like that. And I think he's got good ball placement. So he actually, we were talking about this in our Discord the other day because somebody was commenting on somebody who played as an 8th grader. He got varsity game time as a 7th grader and started 10 games as an 8th grader. So he's got a ton of experience. So again, this is another guy that like I think can come in here because of the experience and just how competitive he is and put on a shocking. I think I had him in my Elite 11. because
We'll find out. Stay tuned.
You made me submit that. I think that he definitely can finish in there. I really, really like him.
Yeah, he's a guy that I went back and watched today, and I'm really kind of wishing I put in my Elite 11. One of the notes that I updated on him was I think he might actually have the best pocket manipulation in this class. Really good arm. I loved his quick release, how much velocity he has on his throws. And what I put in here is my biggest concern with him in this competition is, like, I feel like when he's going, he's on fire, but I think he lacks that consistency a little bit. So if he starts having like a bad day, will that carry over throughout the entire competition? But he is a guy, if he starts out on fire, I think could end up being one, not even just in the Elite 11, but possibly even one of those top guys in the Elite 11. Like, he has the tools to finish near the top.
And I do have him in a range, like for my historical rankings right now, again, without some of this data, like we just don't quite have it yet, but in the same or similar range that I had guys like Avery Johnson, Will Hammond, Holstein, Demond Williams, Lenore Sellers, Novosad, Malik Washington. Like, he's firmly in that kind of grouping. There are some misses in there as well. Rashada, Brock Glenn was in there, Grunkmeyer, but like that's the grouping that he's in. And I think that's a pretty, kind of coin flippy, but like some reason to be positive on them kind of guy for sure.
Well, first of all, for me, I would like to say thank you for not saying Novosad was a miss. You grouped him in with all those players who did really good. So I appreciate that. I love that guy. Next up, another player that I do love, Keisean Henderson, going to Houston. Shut down his commitment earlier, staying with Houston. Star score of a .813. We have McQB2 that is 2 higher than the consensus, with one of the higher end ball velos in this class currently, with a ball velo of 57.
Yeah, he's another guy that's like just crazy raw in a good way. And I know like every year there's kind of one of those guys at the Elite 11 that is way more accurate and kind of looks better in a very kind of sanitized setting than we thought they would. I do think he is potentially the guy that can do that this year. Hasn't been playing quarterback for like a terribly long time as his sole position. So I think that kind of factors into his eval right now. But yeah, I mean, you can kind of see it right there. The ball velo is crazy. He's a really good athlete. He's a really good rusher. But you've got to kind of work on some of the other stuff. And I'm not sure, again, we talked about this, Max Preps doesn't always have full stats, but his passing accuracy through high school so far, 55.5%. It's really bad. But again, you wonder how much of that stuff is a little mechanical, how much of it is he's probably still learning how to read defenses on like more than just a very base level. So this is the kind of thing where, like, if he has a really good year this year, 64, 65%, I'm probably willing to overlook the other years, because junior year was under 50%. According to Max Preps, again, maybe they're missing some games in there, but not great. So he's a guy that like I think could surprise, but it also wouldn't shock me if we're like, yeah, he's kind of a little further away than we kind of were hoping for coming into the weekend.
Yeah, he's one of those guys I think could do like amazing in this competition, but also could just like unfortunately bottom out because of just the rawness of his ability. I put in the article that I think he could really thrive in like some of the out of pocket stuff they do when like they force the guys to go out on the run and fire that ball in there. Obviously, I think deep ball wise, he can do really good. I think he throws a really good deep ball. He might struggle a little bit with the accuracy and everything, but he's going to be one of the more fun players to watch in this competition because, again, I think could easily be one of those guys where all of a sudden talk about he's one of the top 3 to 5 players or didn't even make the Elite 11. We have next up is Troy Huhn going to Penn State. Star rating of a .197. We have McQB 29. That is 9 spots lower than the composite rankings with a ball velo of 51.
Yeah, Huhn's another one of these guys that I don't have draftable. My QB 32 going into the weekend out of 35 I have graded, I believe. I was a little surprised he got the invite, although Colin watched him live at the State College regional and said that he looked pretty decent. Played good strength of schedule, but the arm we have, not good. It's below what we're looking for. The star rating, again, not good. I think he floats like everything that he throws.
Yeah.
Again, another one of these guys that just like clearly doesn't have that fastball. This is not a setting that I would expect him to do that well in. I just am a little surprised that he got the invite, like just kind of quite frankly, and not to disparage the kid, but I think there might have been some better options out there. I think he's going to struggle this week. So.
Yeah, the main points I put in the article for him was I think he's got really good feet, really good mechanics. So like maybe that helps him in some kind of way. But I think the arm strength lacks a little bit more than some of the other top end guys in this class. So we'll see how he kind of fares.
And sometimes like there's a lack of arm strength that we have measured, but like you're like, it's kind of fringy. Like with him, I think it's just like very noticeable.
Yeah. I think the only one that we disagree on with that is Jake Fette, where I feel like there's a little bit more there, but that also might be my bias playing in a little bit because I do love the guy.
I do like him.
Next up is Matt Ponatoski. We have him at QB 13, which is 8 spots higher than the consensus ranking. Ball velo of 55 with a star score of 0.243.
Yeah, I'm like from a future perspective, something to think about over the next few months. I'm very concerned here because he wants to play baseball too, and I'm just not a believer in that. Especially a quarterback, you should not be doing that. So, going to be interesting to see where he ends up and where he lands. But yeah, the star rating not good. The velo is there though, and I think it's very apparent when you watch him. Plays pretty tough competition, and I think he's a very aggressive kind of passer, not in like a boneheaded way. But that's kind of who he is. So, and I think, as a runner, he's a little underwhelming as well. Like, I don't think he's going to be a great rusher, in college. So, but he has a lot of accolades, Mr. Football in Ohio, Gatorade Player of the Year, 4,200 yards last year, 58 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So, like he's a highly decorated, kid overall.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned playing baseball. I believe he actually led their team to a state championship on baseball. Might have been football. I'm not 100% sure. But with him there, I mean, as you can see right here from the graphic, I mean, he's throwing off platform. Is one of the things that I think he really thrives in, right? Is throwing off platform. Really good with some of the sideline deep throws. Can throw the ball from multiple different arm angles. Fairly good arm strength and adept passer, which again, in some of those different drills could make him a very interesting pick to win the Elite 11 here. So again, a guy that should be interesting, along with the next guy, Tait Reynolds, going to Clemson.
Look at that hair.
I know. Look at the biceps too. I tried to find a less flattering pic. I don't want to say not flattering, like helmet football play. There's like no pictures of this dude on the internet. 7.33 star rating. We have a ball velo of 54. I have him at QB 19, which is 3 spots higher than the consensus rankings.
Yeah, High School Musical picture out here, Matt. Jeez, you got on this guy. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, the star rating is there. The velo's there. Strength of schedule, really, really good. I think he's improved every year, which I think is really encouraging with him. I'm interested to see. He's a guy that I really have circled to go back and make sure I dig into the senior year. Like completion percentage, 46.5% as a freshman, 54.2% as a sophomore. And then last year, 62%. Like it's gotten noticeably better. He ran for almost 1,500 yards last year. He's very much a run-first player. But I think he has the athletic profile to make that work. It's going to be really interesting if Clemson kind of tries to beat that out of him a little bit. Because I'm not sure that that's what they want out of the quarterback position. I don't think they're afraid to let them run a little bit, but that much, not quite so sure. But yeah, I mean, he's really athletic and interesting. And he is actually my guy that like, I think of all like the raw, not great passer guys can surprise this weekend and do pretty well in this kind of setting.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I love it. Does not really lose any velocity on some of those deep throws. I think, again, the weirdest part about it is like he's improved every single year, but I still think, like, as you mentioned, he's such a good runner. Like, I think that just comes first for him naturally. But if he continues to improve some of his mechanics and everything as a passer, could actually be a very, very good, not even just college, but possible NFL player. Like he's got all the traits, just needs to improve on that passing a little bit, but could be a guy probably, I'll just say it right now, one of the players that's in both of our kind of top 12s for this competition. A player that's probably not in yours, I won't say if he's in mine or not, Oscar Rios, who is down to 2 California schools. It's UCLA.
Arizona. So you're close.
Arizona. Yeah. Arizona, Arizona's practically in California.
It's basically the same thing. I bet they
Arizona and UCLA are his final 2 spots. I believe he will be committing in 10 days, if I'm remembering correctly from the tweet I saw earlier today. He will be committing on June 27th. We have him 9 spots lower than the composite rankings at QB 21, Ball velo of 49. I believe that's the lowest out of all the players who are at the Elite 11 finals, and a star rating of 178.
Yeah, extremely skinny kid, like just very physically underdeveloped at this point, and the arm velo, like you mentioned, is well below acceptable range, and I think it looks like that too. Like it does. It's not like one of those that you're a little surprised that it's only at 48 or 49 or whatever we have him at. I do think mechanically pretty decent. Does a good job kind of keeping his eyes downfield. Good mechanics. Footwork is pretty solid. I think he does a good job when pressure is coming to step up in the pocket instead of kind of scrambling out at the side of the pocket, as a lot of these guys tend to want to do when they don't necessarily need to. But yeah, I mean everything's a floater. And he's not a good rusher. So I think, he's really, if you're talking like college and stuff, he's going to need to be in a high volume passing offense. So, which maybe UCLA and Arizona will be over the next few years. Tough to say. We don't know what UCLA is really going to look like, and Arizona, never know. But yeah, I think he's a guy. I don't think he's going to do amazing this weekend, but I don't think he's going to embarrass himself either.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if Fish would have stayed at Arizona, I would have liked him there a lot more with kind of the RPO stuff that they do. I think he really does well in that with his quick release. Very good, in my opinion, in the short intermediate parts of the field. But then like outside of that, like doesn't have the sideline throws, doesn't have deep throws. I think he's an okay rusher at times, but he also doesn't play the greatest competition. So like it's kind of hard. I don't know that he really would be able to run as well when he plays some of that better competition. But according to all the reports, he's impressed in a lot of the camps and been better than some of the players even in this grouping that he's gone up against. So I agree with you. Probably he's not a player that's going to be like top of the scores, but I don't think will be like the guy sitting at the bottom of the rankings when it's all said and done. Next up is Jett Thomalla, who just recently flipped from Iowa State to Alabama earlier today. Star rating of 0.176. We have him at QB 25, which is 9 spots lower than the composite ranking with an arm velo of 51.
Yeah, I know Marcus likes him. I know some other people like him as well, but has not been overly productive. Star rating, like you mentioned, not great. The ball velo just out kind of below the threshold we're looking for. Competition's okay, but not amazing. He's this hyper aggressive downfield passer, but not like difficult, like high level of difficulty throws. Like it's those kind of bucket shots that you'd expect any quarterback that's getting major D1 offers to make. So like he's not a guy that I'm terribly interested in. I'm a little bummed that he flipped to Alabama because he was the kind of guy that I thought would get drafted by other people in supplemental drafts next year and kind of just, be another guy, maybe somebody else would fall to me. But I in this setting, another guy that I think will do fine. Actually, wouldn't shock me if he does finish up in the top 11. But for like C2C purposes, I'm not in. I can't get there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And the flip to Alabama to me is a little bit disappointing because it's not that I think Thomalla is a bad player, but like he's not beating out Russell. It's just not happening. And so, I mean, you're sitting for a couple of years. I mean, I do think is really good in the short intermediate parts. Feels really good at setting his feet before throws and resetting his feet when he needs to, when he's kind of rushing out of the pocket. I do think he's comfortable to make plays out of structure, but really kind of struggles with velocity. And I think kind of struggles with consistency and just like accuracy issues down the field at times. So we'll be interested to see how he does in this competition.
He's one of those guys that doesn't generate any velocity with like the torque on his upper half, which I that's always a little concerning to me, like mechanically. I don't know if that, like, I mean, you can definitely get there. That was one of like Drew Aller's big things. He was not using his upper body at all, and that he really worked with a coach for a couple of years and got that figured out. But I mean, it takes some time, and he's not there right now. So maybe he gets there and he can unlock that part of the game.
He'll have plenty of time to sit and work behind Keelan Russell for a couple of years. So next up is Terry Walker III going to Duke, a star score rating of 0.463, ball velo of 55. We have him at QB 27, which is 17 spots higher than the consensus rankings.
I think this guy, if we're talking like CFF purposes, could be a really cool player in the correct setting, but I am shocked that the Elite 11 is letting him anywhere near this competition. Just has been, from a production standpoint, awful. over the past couple of years. I mean, he must have just been really good at his regional. Because I mean, he completed 46.7% of his passes across his 3 years of high school so far. Like I think there's no context scenario that I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe that'll get better. Like that's just really, really bad. I don't think he's pure see it, throw it. I actually don't think from the stuff and I've been able to watch of him, he's really reading defenses at all. Like I don't think he is. So I think there's a lot of work there. Again, not something that necessarily maybe hangs him up this weekend, but moving forward. And I said, I wrote this note down. His wide receivers must absolutely hate him because he gets them killed all the time. Like just lays these dudes out to get crushed across the middle. Like just throws them into the worst possible positions you can imagine over and over and over and over again. So I don't know how we ended up here. I think we're gonna have to drop a little below Duke to like see him truly unleashed.
It's possible,
but like an intriguing physical, kind of prospect for sure with the arm velo and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, my thing I put in the article is like, I'm just gonna be honest, like his accuracy is just flat out bad. 46% last year. I mean, it's just not good. The one thing I put on here is like, if you wanted to give him some upside, it's strictly that he's probably going to be able to compete in the arm strength drills, and he does got some mobility to make that stuff happen. But like outside of that, I unfortunately think he's probably just going to be one of those guys. I don't want to say struggles, but I don't think has some of the consistency and some of the other things some of these other guys have to really do well in a competition like this. Jonas Williams is up next, committed to USC, star rating of 0.132. We have him with a ball velo of 54. We have him at QB 20, which is 11 spots lower than the consensus rankings.
Yeah. I do think the arm's decent. I think he can generate some pretty good velocity when he's throwing off platform as well. So again, in some of those drills, I think he'll do okay. I think he's got a really long windup. So I think that might hurt him at times moving forward, just in terms of getting the ball out quickly. He brings the ball really low as well. So I think he's going to be a strip sack, threat unless he kind of cleans that up a little bit. I mean, he's just kind of an unremarkable guy to me. I'm not really super jazzed on him going to USC with Longstreet and some other guys there. Like, I just think that's maybe not a great spot for him. I think maybe going back closer to home, he's from Illinois, somewhere in the Midwest might be a little bit better for him. But I think he'll do okay again this weekend, but I don't think he has the upside to contend for it. I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, my main things for him, accuracy and ball placement. I do think he can challenge some tight windows in like the short and intermediate areas, but he does struggle with that at times. And I forgot to mention this with Terry, because I did mention this with you just mentioned with Jonas, and I put this as well. Like, I don't really love his release with the way he is, and Terry Walker's is fairly, I put very unique throwing motion.
He has a
Terry
push
Walker.
motion. I have written down. Like it's more like pushing the ball as opposed to, like kind of getting that real nice spin with, your hand around the laces of the ball. Yeah.
Yeah. They're the two in this class that I think just my opinion could use to maybe improve that a little bit. It might actually help them overall in their overall play.
I forget there's some quarterback in this class that I wrote down in their notes. I know, like, this is a total tear down job on the release. I don't remember in the motion. I don't remember who it was, and I don't think it's somebody that's participating this weekend. But I just remember being like, holy crap! Like, you've gotten this far doing that. Like, geez, I'm not usually an advocate of changing throwing motion that much. Like, it kind of is what it is for a lot of guys. But like,
We'll have to have you go through your notes, and you can mention that on the official this week.
I'll see if I can find who it was. Yeah.
Everybody another reason to turn into the official dropping on Thursday. Last but not least, another one of your favorite quarterbacks in this class, Derek Zammit, going to Washington. We have him with a ball velo of 56, one of the better ones in this class. A star rating of 4.496. We have him at QB4, which is 23 spots higher than the consensus rankings.
Yeah, I probably have him a little too high at this point, because when I first got his star rating down, it was 0.562. So it was kind of within that realm that, like, I think we can potentially get that massaged up to around a 0.7 there. But yeah, I mean, he is like my guy for me in the class. I think he's just awesome. And like you said, the arm is great. I think he throws with awesome velocity, even when he's moved off his spot. I think he's a really good anticipatory passer. I think he's one of the better ones in this class. And so he can kind of challenge a lot of those tighter windows. I don't want to say gunslinger, but he's definitely not afraid to just kind of let rip. And I think he has the arm, generally speaking, to do that. I think, he ball placement wise, one of the better ones in this class. I think he can run, but he's more of a scramble to throw kind of guy. Yeah. Does a good job keeping his eyes downfield. And I think he's got good instincts overall. Good, last year 68% completion percentage, ran for 560 yards. I think Washington's an awesome spot for him again. I think he's a really good prospect and another guy that I think like this kind of setting, he'll do really, really well.
Yeah, 35-4 touchdown interception ratio. What I put in his thing is like he's a spark plug that just ignites the offense into exciting plays. Like he starts that off a lot of times with the way that he avoids sacks. His arm is extremely fun to watch. He's fun off platform. Again, can throw from those multiple different arm angles, impressive accuracy and velocity to all three parts of the field. So likely as a guy, we have him at QB4, as I mentioned, there's 23 spots, higher than the consensus. I think that the consensus ranks see him jump up quite a bit after this weekend because I think he's going to do really well.
Yeah.
All right, Austin, to close out the show, let's give our top. So the way this works is as we talked about before, the Elite 11. That is the top 11 guys, but we have 12 on the graphics. Like guy who might just miss out. Who are your top 12 quarterbacks for this competition?
Yeah, so Diabell is my predicted winner. I didn't dig too deep for that this year. I think he's got one other thing about this competition that you think you have to consider is that the guys that got more points in the regional, like that got the auto invites, they have an upper leg because they are coming into the competition with more points, is my understanding of this. So a guy like Bell.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
I think like most of these guys did, right? I think Bell got one early.
I think if I'm looking at
Coleman
this,
did, Zammit did, Faizon
is it
did.
Ponatoski and Reynolds? Are those the only two on this list that didn't get automatic invites?
Did Griffin get an auto invite? I think he got one late, and I don't remember if Burgess did or not either. But most of these guys did, and I definitely did factor that into my ranking here. But yeah, I have Diabell winning it, and then after that, I think Burgess is going to compete for it. Bowe Bentley, I think, is going to have a really good weekend. Duckworth, I think this is just the kind of scenario where he'll do well, and the lack of velo won't matter as much. Coleman, I think, and Zammit right there. And then after that are, I think, a little more speculative guys that I think are going to struggle in at least one or more of the drills that are ultimately going to hurt them. But Faizon Brandon, Jake Fette, Will Griffin, Keisean Henderson, Matt Ponatoski, and then Tait Reynolds technically is my outside the top 11 guy that I could see getting in there. So I think those are going to be the top 11 and then one, potential challenger there. You're muted.
Yeah, my list not much different. I have Diabell right there as the winner too. I think he's just and I hate saying this. Right now I do have a fairly big gap between Jared Curtis and him, but I'm starting to lean more and more toward Diabell possibly ending up as my QB1. I just really, really like this kid. And playing at American Heritage with that competition, everything I think is just extremely impressive. Henderson, again, I put him all the way up here, but he's a guy I am worried about, is what we talked about, could end up being at the bottom. I still think makes the Elite 11, but maybe toward the bottom of this list. But then Derek Zammit, Bowe Bentley, Jake Fette, all guys we talked about. Matt Ponatoski, again, I think just with his tools and what he does brings a little bit. Obviously, the two that stand out different from yours, I have Briggs Cherry and Oscar Rios in here. I think just from what they do from a passing perspective in the pocket is going to help them out. Then Travis Burress, as well in there with Landon Duckworth, Faizon Brandon, and then Tait Reynolds on there as well as my kind of last guy. So again, that is our Elite 11 preview here for Campus to Canton. If you want to hear all of our recruiting stuff, check out the official. It drops every Thursday, typically every Thursday morning, sometimes Thursday afternoons, but always just dropped on Thursday. Austin and myself do that as we break down players from the current recruiting classes, and we'll continue to do that moving forward. Again, if you like what you saw, the Velo Star Scores, check out. We do, man, this is probably not great to say that. We still have the recruiting package on Campus to Canton, right, Austin? Or is it now just
I think we're
got to get. Okay, so okay. Well, then go get still you can go on there, you get it, all those profiles. The profiles look actually I'll show you one right now for KJ Edwards who committed today. This is kind of what the profiles look like. You can go check it out on campus at Canton. They're a beautiful, beautiful thing designed by a big wide receiver guy who's one of the leaders here on our recruiting team. Thank you to Marcus and Andrew as well, who are sorry, how is it called? Woody, who always who do a lot of helping us as well on the recruiting team. We will be probably recapping this at some point, but again, make sure to stay tuned into them on X and Instagram. They should be going live. You guys can watch all of that stuff on, I believe, all the drills kick off Wednesday and Thursdays. I don't think it goes into Friday. So we'll find out the winners by Friday. But thank you guys all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys again soon.